Episode 41 with Matt Mounier on the 9 Point Start the Dream podcast.
Welcome to 9 Point Started with a Dream podcast. Our goal is to showcase the stories of athletes and the community that supports them by being authentic about their journey. Here's your host, Jacolby Gilliam.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host as always, Jacolby Gilliam. This episode we have Matt Mounier, D3 athlete, and he's the founder of the D3 Chronicles. And what's cool about this one is because it kind of reminded me of why I started this whole thing. It wasn't just about telling the elite athlete stories or, the D1 athletes, the pro athletes, the Olympians. It was about sharing the stories of athletes because we can all relate. Whatever your version of greatness is, it can be, just to play in college. And I think Matt really embodied that on his journey because he kind of figured out, I love this game, I love this sport, and I still don't pursue it. How can I do it to the best of my abilities and still achieve my dream? And we go through his journey, what he's doing now and what he's doing to with the D3 Chronicle to kind of help athletes with a life after sport through the resume, through the whole transition process. So hope you enjoy, get a lot of value from it, and here we go. So Matt, the question everyone comes on is, when you're younger as an athlete, what was one of your bigger picture goals you wanted to achieve?
Man, when I was little, every athlete's dream, right, is to play pro. My dreams were to be on the court with Kobe Bryant for some reason, where envisioning that moment where Michael Jordan threw the ball to Steve Kerr to hit the game-winning shot because Michael got doubled. Like, I was going to be that for Kobe when I was 20, 22, 23, 24. And it's funny how, that's like the dream, right? And that's all you can really think of. Like, I remember kids growing up, they were like, I'm going to be a police officer or firefighter, which is great. And, people want to be astronauts and things like that. But it's funny when you finally start talking to different athletes, just the moments that they carry with them, and then how that kind of creates the reality that they see for themselves.
I love that. And I think how it's cool how you kind of had it pictured out, just the Kobe getting double teamed, you're going to be open in the corner for that three to win the game. I think that's cool to kind of envision that. So
I think it's interesting how visual things are too. Like, people, when you ask, like, okay, what do you want to do? Like, I think a very easy, flat answer would be like kind of like the answer, like astronaut. But for athletes, like they see it to the finish, like they see the beginning and the end. Like, they see the moments of what it's actually going to look like and taste like and feel like when like the crowd goes wild for you, like those types of environments and moments, and the ability to visualize like what exactly that's going to look like, I think is something that's pretty special, and definitely something that to be conscious of and carry with you.
Oh, dude, I believe you on that, because like when I was a kid, I used to always play NCAA football. I played like every year just to kind of imagine myself, in that uniform, kind of, running that game-winning touchdown, whatever it may be. So I think it's so visual, like you're saying. So when it came to this dream of yours, getting to that level, how do you think I'm gonna go about making this happen?
Man, tough question. Yeah. From a young age, I thought that there was no doubt that this was going to happen, that if you cared enough about something, if you believed in something enough, like you were going to be able to do it. Like, you had a chance to make that dream that you had come true. And it's almost like kids believing in Santa Claus, right? Like, if eventually gets to a point where you're like, oh crap, like, is what I've been telling myself my entire life a lie type of moment. And I remember in high school going to play basketball in Vegas, and I played basketball in Los Angeles. So don't get me wrong. Like, I was surrounded by plenty of talented individuals. A lot of friends that I grew up with are like in the NBA now. And I remember going to Vegas, and like Roy Williams was on the sideline, like, Boeheim was there. Like, these people were there watching these people playing basketball, and they were all high school kids. And it was leaps and bounds ahead of like my level. Like, it was incredible and unfathomable and like mind shattering of like how talented these people were that were only like a year or two older than me when I was just getting into high school. And I think at that moment, I decided that I needed to get the best training and put the most hours in as possible in order to be successful, or it still be able to achieve, a fraction of my dreams. So I remember like the very next week, once I got back from Vegas, calling my coach in high school and being like, hey, like, what's the earliest the gym opens up? I want to start getting some workouts in, because that's what I heard people were doing. So I would wake up, I would take the bus to get to my school, and would work out for an hour and a half every single day. If it was ball handling, shooting, whatever it was, I had different workouts, and I just created an agenda. At lunch, I would do, in my uniform, I would eat my lunch as quick as I could, go to the gym, do 2-ball drills, shoot free throws, work on form shooting for that 45 minutes that I had. And then after school, I would work out from about 2:45 till about 6 or 7 at night. So, and the reason that I was doing this was because of the 10,000 hour rule. So essentially, once you reach 10,000 hours, you're consider 10,000 hours of focused practice. You basically can or should be considered a professional. So I was like, okay, if I'm putting in 6 or 7 hours a day, how many hours are these people putting in? Am I getting closer? Am I slowly thinning the gap between, the gap that I had seen over in Vegas?
That's key right there. And like, just from the point where you said you saw these athletes that were better than you, right? And it didn't discourage you. It said, all right, how can I get a little bit better myself? Mm-hmm. So what helped you kind of just have that mindset? Because I know I grew up with kids that had that similar situation, and they quit. So what made you say, I'm not going to quit, I'm just going to get better in my own way?
Yeah. I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit. Like, it's hard to give up on your dreams, I guess. Like, for me, in my life, it would be harder to look back now and think of like, what if? And I think even from a very young age, I was like, this might be taking a few steps forward too, but everyone always said like, man, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And like, I was thinking, like, I don't know the Ali quote exactly, but Ali talks about how, he'd rather work out and sweat all these hours and be the champ than not be. Like, for that, all the glory was worth it for him, no matter what hours it was that he had to put in. And I think I don't know what happened to me. Like, that was just the mindset that I had. Like, I would rather give it my all and have it end up not working out for me than to look back and be like, man, what if I put in those extra few hours? What if I, got that shooting trainer, because everyone said my jump shot was terrible? What if I got that strength person so I could run a little bit faster, jump a little bit higher? So I just didn't want to have that in my life in my later years.
That sense of regret if you didn't go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So you extra time, you put in the extra effort, you're getting coached. How did that progress your dream become a reality?
Yeah, so I think so. Yeah, the dream never became a reality. Ron Artest actually ended up taking the shot that I was supposed to take in that championship game. But the closer I got, it was you keep working out, you keep playing in games, and you slowly start thinning the gap between those elite players and yourself. And like, your name starts getting thrown in the conversation of like top players in LA. You got the people that come to all the games that are in your ear saying like, man, like you can play D1, like who's looking at you doing all these things? You're playing against players that are already going to Georgetown, already going to Tennessee, already going to like these huge Division I schools. And you're playing with them. Like, you're right there with them. You're the one that they're worried about on the other side of the court. And I think I think that is how I slowly began to realize like those dreams slowly started becoming realities. Like you just keep leveling up, I guess. Like once you get to that next tier, that next level, like I remember going out to, these different club teams, and like at first it was man, like who is this guy? Like he's, no one knows who this guy is. And then by the time like I was getting ready to go into my senior year, it was almost like, people were fighting over me. Like, okay, well, where's he going to play? Like, we want him to play for us, come here, play for us and play, we're going to go to these tournaments this summer. And I think, I think that that's one of the ways that you can tell that you're getting closer. Obviously you're becoming a better basketball player, but I think that also that whole system can really mess with a young person's head as well.
So when it came to that, did you either like find a niche that you knew was what you can do better than anybody else, or did you try to play the whole game?
Yeah. So I was shooter. And I was like, I don't know if I had too many things that I did exceptionally well. Like I would have been a decent 2-guard wherever, but I think kind of what stood out when people would watch me was that like I was just so scrappy. Like it didn't matter. Like I went to I was at a camp at Brandeis College it's back east, small D3 school. And it was like an all academic, group of people playing. And it was basically everyone's there on their own ticket. There aren't really teams, and they kind of throw you together with a group of 5 or 6 people. And it's basically a showcase. And most of the time, everybody there is like trying to get their own shot. Everyone's trying to do, their own thing, trying to look good in front of the coaches. And I remember I was picking people up like 3/4 court and just guarding them. And there was this guy who I just knew that like I had him. Like no doubt, like I'm going to own you today for the next 20 minutes while we're playing. I'm gonna make your life miserable. And I remember there was a play where he was like, I'm making him change directions. He changes direction. He loses the ball a little bit, and I dive, like I get the ball faster than him, and I go down, take a layup, and I look back, and we had hit heads, and like my head had hit him like right on the corner of his eye, and the guy's like bleeding down. He's like bleeding down his face, and like it was like those moments of like man, like this guy's tough. Like this is the guy who like you want to go to war with. This is the guy that you want to battle with. And like on top of that, like I was a decent defender. Like I was probably the best thing that I did, and the thing I loved to do was shoot the rock.
So you were on our test.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I didn't get in too many fights with the crowd, but yeah, it was pretty close.
Awesome. So as this, your high school career is going, what was your next step, or to like at least getting a taste of the dream?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, kind of going back to what I talked about, how, all that praise and all that can really go to a 17-year-old's head. Like in my mind, I was like a Division I player. Like the dream was to go Division I. And the fact of the matter is that like, they're like, no one really cares. Like no one cares. Like that's the sad reality. Like now, like if I told people that I went to so-and-so school, like no one really cares. But at the time it was very, very important for me to play Division I. So what ended up happening was I had some Ivy League interest, some other schools over back east. They wanted me to go to a prep year to get my body a little bit stronger, a little bit more ready for the next level. There were some smaller schools on the West Coast that said, "Hey, you could walk on. Well, we don't have a scholarship for you this year, but you're good enough. Maybe you might be able to get something." And I remember having to figure out like sitting down and like going like the pros and cons of what everything was and like what I wanted my life to look like one day. And I realized that I needed to like who liked me. And that was a huge moment in my life where I was looking at, like, man, like so-and-so is really interested in me. And then like Western Michigan just sent me a letter because probably their option number 1 dropped out. So I'm option number 7 for them, whatever it is. So I was like, okay, who has always been there for me? Who are the people that like want to go down in a war with me? Like, those are the people that I want to align myself with and associate myself with, because I know they're going to have my best interest in mind. So I ended up going to a school called Whitman College, which is a D3 school in Walla Walla, Washington. And at the time, maybe 2 years before I got there, they were the worst team in the conference. And by the time I got there, our first year, we came in second in the conference. And for the last 3 years now, they've been the number 1 team in the nation. So over that small span, like, I think the trajectory and the growth and like being in an environment, like chasing the top, was like so exciting. And like being a part of the journey was more than I could have ever asked for a basketball experience. I think, a lot of people get caught into the logistics of like playing Division I or whatever it is that, you had your mind set out on doing. But like that decision to play at that level, get a great education, and being around people that truly did care about me is what has been able to launch me into my next phase of my life.
That's perfect. Because I know if I would have heard you say that when I was growing up, I would have listened to it, because I was that kid, my eye was so set on D1 that I ignored everything else. And I was like, small school, NAIA, D3, I'm not doing that. I'm Jacolby, I'm bigger than that, and I think, and it's like, it's the ego that you don't hear about the D2 schools. You don't hear about the D3 schools and all that experience can give you, right? All you hear is about the Alabamas, Oklahomas, you hear about that lifestyle. So
right. And the thing is too, is like, who are you listening to? And it took me a long time to figure that out too. Like, everyone wants to give you their 2 cents. Everyone wants to give you advice, but it finally clicked for me. Like, someone told me this, that like, you should only be taking advice from people that have done what you're trying to do and are now doing what you want to do better than you. Like, those are the people that can tell you, that's a good decision or a bad decision. And like, there was just so much noise, and it's so hard to like figure out, who to listen to. But I think that's kind of what it finally comes down to.
I think that's a great point right there. Just like know who to listen to, because filter out the noise. So once you chose the school you're going to, how'd you start balling out?
Yeah, so it was really cool. Like I got on campus, and I went up a little bit early, and there were some players there because I went on their foreign trip. So they were all practicing, they were all ready to go. And I thought I was going to go in there and just whoop. Like, I was like, man, like D3, like I can still play. Like, this is going to be, rewarding for me. So I get there, and like, man, like these guys can freaking play. Like, I'm playing with these guys who are basically in my position right now. Like, they're shooters, and like, they don't freaking miss. Like, they don't need any space. They're shooting from 30 feet away, like just down. I'm like, this, like, what? This exists? And like, I just remembered, like, at that point, again, like getting so excited to like get back in the gym and work. Like, I was so excited. And at the time, we had a player who was like getting looked at by wasn't getting looked at. I don't know what the right word is, but like he was on a trajectory to possibly, be a professional, and not like just a professional in the fact that you're going to go play somewhere and make, 20, 30,000, you're going to come back and be in the real world when you're 26. Like this guy was going to go make hundreds of thousands of dollars playing basketball. And he was like the one that I was like, let's go work out. Like, when do you go to the gym? Like, I want to be at the gym at the same time. Like, what workouts are you doing? Like, I want to do the same workouts. Like, what are you doing in the weight room? Like, let's do the same thing. And like, I was just like that was going to school for me. Like the notepad, the notes that I was taking, because I was like, I get 1 year to get as much information about how this person was able to do it, and then I have to start replicating it myself. So I remember like, okay, here's the workouts that he does. Here's what he does in the morning. Here's what he's doing at night. Here's like the food that he's eating. Here's what's going into his body. Here's the gym time that he's spending. And like from that moment of starting to implement all these things, and like I started like, I was like, okay, well, he was really good. I want to be better. So how do I get better? How am I going to be better than him? So I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing these things on top of what he was doing, because that's how you're going to get better. And I remember from my freshman to sophomore year, my freshman year, I like averaged like 2-3 points a game, whatever it was. Sophomore year, he was the only player that really left. Everyone else was still there. I was then averaging like 20 points a game. Like all of a sudden, like my game, like that was truly the last time that I saw my game like just completely elevate to like a level that I had never been at before. And like it was like a new realm for me. It was like, like finally seeing the Matrix. Like you're in the Matrix, but like you haven't really seen it yet. And like that's when like the code just started dropping. Like it was like the game just completely changed.
It feels like this whole thing for you has just been an evolution of just kind of figuring yourself out and what makes you go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you're progressing this thing, what did you see as the finish line, or was there ever a finish line that you thought, okay, so this is what I'm aiming to achieve once it's all said and done?
Yeah, man. Like it's interesting. Like, I guess when I saw that going and playing Division III and the potential of being a pro was still there, it was like a shot in the dark. It was like, man, like if this works out, that'd be so cool. But at the same time, it was kind of knowing that like it was going to be coming to an end, and like, what are you going to do next, sort of thing. And it finally did, get to its end. And, everyone imagines some glorious last game that they play in, some, beautiful championship cutting down the nets. And that's the last game that you played in. But like, there's only, 50 kids that get to say that happened to them. So I, like the basketball world ended, and I remember being in a huge identity crisis and really not knowing what on earth I was going to do next. And like for the first month of hanging up those shoes for the last time, like I really didn't even know what to do with myself. Like, do you work out? Do you want to go try and do this, foreign thing? Like, it's a shot in the dark. Like, do you really want to do that? And basically I squandered like a month of my life, and really I didn't do any thinking of like what plan B would even look like, knowing that plan A really wasn't realistic either. So like, this was like the first time in my life where I didn't have a plan and I had no idea what was going to happen next, because your whole life in athletics, everything's pretty structured for you. Like, if this doesn't work out, then there's always this option. Like, you kind of always have a backup plan kind of built into what it is that you're doing. or you always have someone that's going to help get you back on track if you kind of fall off a little bit. And this was like the first time where I was completely autonomous, and I was like, it just freaked me out. Looking back, like it just freaked me out. Like I didn't know what was going to happen next. And so I wasted away a month of my life, and I realized like, holy crap, like in 2 months, I'm going to be that athlete that everyone is talking about that like couldn't figure out what the heck they were going to do. Like I'm going to go back and, live with my parents and like not have a job. And like, not that there's anything wrong with that, but like, that was just something that like freaked me out again in my head. So all of a sudden I'm like, okay, pull out my laptop and I look up like jobs, like what are common jobs for entry level people? Because I didn't really have a whole ton of experience. So I was like, okay, entry jobs where you can make the most money. And so like 2 of them, you needed to have like a certain requirement, or like you had to be techie. And I was like, I don't know how to write code. Like I can't do that. Like 2 of the jobs sucked. I was like, this is dumb. Like I would never do that. And so the last job that I found was being a financial planner. So I was like, all right, cool. I can do that. 5 jobs, 4 of them are awful. Let's go with this one. Let's see what happens. So I started applying all over the place to try and be a, beginner financial planner. And while I'm doing it, I'm applying. I don't want to stay in where I'm at. So I'm applying all over. I'm applying to places like Seattle, Portland, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Northern California area, Southern California, Arizona, Texas, like anywhere that's hot, because I was like, I don't want to live there anymore. And like Seattle, because a lot of people are from there. They know the school. Portland, same kind of reason. So I do that. I have no idea why anyone ever looked at my resume. I have no idea if anyone ever read my cover letter. And I'm completely shocked that anyone ever called me back to interview me, because my crap was probably terrible. So I'm, stumbling through these interviews. I remember my first interview that I had, like the people are asking me about why I chose the company. People are asking me like who the CEO is, like all this stuff. And I'm like, you got it all wrong. Like, I have no idea what you're trying to ask me right now. Like, and I remember like just how awful the interview process was, because I just had no idea at all what I was doing. And not having a network, not knowing anyone, and moving to a new place and applying for a sales job was a huge ding against me. And then the other huge ding was not having any experience, or maybe not having any experience, but not relating anything that I had done to the having experience in that field. So I kind of got the hang of it. I figured out, these interview things. I remember I was in Scottsdale at Prudential. This was my last chance at getting a job. And I'm on the top of the Prudential building, and I'm like, man, like I'm going over like all the possible questions that they could ask me. I'm going over my business plan, because at this point I was like, okay, they want to know how I'm going to build a network. How am I going to get better at sales? Yada, yada, yada. I go down, this must have been the best interview I could have mustered together. Like it probably wasn't the best interview, but like it was the best possible interview that I could have done at that moment in my life. Like I was prepared. I had like a business plan. Like I was ready to take this guy through a PowerPoint if he wanted to see it. And at the very end of it, he says, it looks like, you're very motivated. You're very driven. You'd be a great person in our system. You do really well in this environment, but we need you to come live here in Scottsdale, work at Starbucks for 6 months, and then come back and try and get a job. And I was like, oh man, like I have like 40 days now, 30 days before I walk across the aisle and just go home and have nothing at all again. And so I go back, and everyone around me, all my teammates, not all my teammates, a lot of my teammates, all the other people that I was going to school with, I went to a school that was a liberal arts school, and they're very, it's I don't know if it's like similar to Stanford, but they call it the Harvard of the West. Like, it's very preppy in the sense that everyone's getting like good jobs. Like, oh, where are you going next year? I'm going to Amazon. I'm working at Goldman Sachs. I'm working at yada yada. And people ask, you know, if you don't have a good answer, it's like very intimidating. So I thought all these people were doing it on their own. They had figured it out. And I was like, holy crap. So I'm going home on that plane. I had a layover, and I hit up my coach, and I'm like, Coach, like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I can't get a job, blah, 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 blah. I'm telling him all this stuff. And like, this goes completely back to like, this is why going to this school and liking Who Likes You was like one of the best decisions I could have ever made, because this coach completely went out of his way. Eric Bridgeland went out of his way to find me a possibility of where to go next. He was like, hey, you know what you need to do is start, you know, reaching out to people and building a network. Here, I have all of these alumni for you to call them. I have, you know, all these people that graduated while you were here, call them, see what they're doing, see if there's any openings, blah, 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 blah. He's like, you just need to get a job and get going and start getting more experience. So I'm going through all of this stuff. I'm finally getting better conversations. I'm like kicking down doors, and he finally gives me he's like, hey, this guy is like completely cut from the same cloth. Like, you guys are going to get along together. Like, and it's in San Diego. Like, it doesn't get much better than that. He's like, give him a call. Don't mess this up. This is like a slam dunk. If you mess this up, like, there's more wrong with you than you think. Like, that type of attitude. And gave him a call, came down to San Diego and shadowed, and now I'm here.
Hey man, that worked out because you avoid the Arizona summers.
I didn't know about him. At the time.
Yeah, man. When I moved here like after school in like June, and it hit me hard. I was like, oh, how people live this way. So it's awesome.
It's dry though.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little better than like the 100% humidity, 100-degree weather, but you know, it's still hot.
Definitely. So after all that, how did you land on the D3 Chronicles?
Oh man, yeah, great question. So the D3 Chronicles is a sort of a blog that I'm using. It's my blog, and it kind of got started as a way to show the correlations that I was finding in sales and in sports. So to kind of keep going with my story, I guess, because it kind of leads into the blog. I was in the mortgage industry, and at 22, I have a little bit of a baby face. Can't really grow any facial hair, so it's hard. It can be challenging, let's say, to talk to people that have been in the business for 30 years or 50 years old, and you're trying to convince them to trust you with a lot of their money and probably one of their most valuable assets. So for the first 6 months to 9 months, I was basically locked into a little cubicle, just learning as much as I could about the business, just learning guidelines, learning like social skills, learning like how to respond to emails, dealing with people on the phone, like all of the inside jobs. But like the goal was like, if someone challenged you or asked you a question, like you need to know the answer, because if you were young and you were like messing stuff up, that is clearly a no-no, and you just get tainted for your entire career if that's what you wanted to do. So do that. I'm like, we're going through tests and quizzes. Like, I'm putting these things together now, like, and it's like, it's fun. And like, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to go out there and do this whole sales thing, 'cause that's what I was like in it for. Like, that was what I wanted. And I remember it was like this social networking event thing that I'm going to go to first. It's like it might've been like a YPN thing. And I get there and I'm like, okay, like just go inside. And like, I couldn't talk to anyone. Like I couldn't get off the wall. Like I pretended to be busy on my phone for like 30 minutes and like left. And I was like, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, this is is what you wanted to do. Like, this is how you're going to make money. This is your livelihood. Like, this is what's going to get you excited. This is why you came into this industry. And I was like, man, like, maybe I'm just not good at it yet. And so it went back to like everything that I knew how to do. It was like, okay, so if you want to be good in the game, you have to practice. Like, if you don't practice, you're never going to be good in the game. So I'm like, okay, practice, sales. How do I practice this? So I started reading like self-help books, sales books, and like every single book would be like, okay, I was like, okay, what can I take from this book? What can I start implementing immediately? So like I started recording myself giving sales pitches in the mirror. Like I remember recording me walking around the room trying to figure out which questions triggered good conversations with different people. What were good moments that I was having? What was a good phone call? What was a good cold call that I had? All of these different things, implementing them and like really starting to grow as a salesperson. And like the one thing I wouldn't do was journal. I was like, that's weird. Like no one does that. This is like an old thing. No one really, it's just not a thing. And then one day, someone posted this thing about journaling and like all this healing stuff that it does for you and like getting words onto paper, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, all right, I had a really crummy day and I was like, let's give it a try. Let's go for it. So I'm starting to write and I'm like, today sucked because blah, 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 blah. And I was like, people keep giving me a hard time because of this, yada, yada, yada. And I finally, at the very end of it, I was able to tie it back to sports somehow. And it was one of those things where I felt like I didn't know enough and I was lacking confidence in an area. And by doing that, it gave me so much more like confidence in myself and the skills that I had, and that everything that basketball and sports had taught me is not gone. It's still translatable. And that is basically how the Chronicles of a D3 athlete was born. So ever since then, I kept writing, I kept journaling. I was like, this is super freeing. And then one day I must have been really feeling like whatever I put together, because I decided to throw it up on Facebook. And the idea behind posting it was like 100% selfish at the time. Like, again, going back to, it was like to show all these people that like, it wasn't that easy to get to where I was. Like, it was hard work. Like, I figured this thing out. Like, none of you guys know, one of those type of moments. And it was, the next day I post it, the next day I wake up and there's like people that I haven't talked to that I was playing sports with back when I was like growing up, that were like, this is just what I needed to see today. I had people that I played against, people that I was used to play with. They were like, I'm going through the same stuff right now. Like, I'm so glad you posted this. Like, I'm going to start using this, blah, 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 whatever it is. Like, we need more of this. And I was like, holy crap. Like, okay, maybe there's more to this than I thought. Like, maybe there are a bunch of stories out there that haven't been told yet. And there's a bunch of athletes that are struggling and going through the same exact thing that I'm going through and just not sure if they should be speaking out about it.
Everybody has a story that can inspire somebody, right? And like, even in the midst of everything, just something as small as I got a sales job, it can inspire some other athlete that's going through that same process. So props to you, man. Appreciate
it. Yeah. Going back to like having that story, right? Like, I think a lot of people, and this is something that I struggle with too, is like who cares about you? Who cares about me? Right? Like, who am I? Who am I to give advice, to tell people like, here's what I've learned. Here's what you should implement in your life. Those types of things. But I think your audience and the people that you're trying to reach is being that person that you wanted to hear, if you were 5 years ago. Like, everyone has taken something from sports. Everyone has learned something, and everyone has something that's happened in their story that they can tell, that they can help themselves 5 years ago. So I think remembering that and focusing on that when you're telling your story, like there's always an audience. There's always people that need to hear what you have to say.
Love that, man. Love it. Love it. So what's next for you and the D3 Chronicles and what you're trying to do with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, man, I got super fired up about this whole thing. I was like, man, like, okay, let's start telling stories. Like people need to hear this. And so I kind of started having people tell their stories and like doing these things. And I felt like there wasn't a solution that was being provided. And I think me being me, I've always been very like why are you doing this? What is the end goal? What is the solution to the problem that you have? And I felt like I was really identifying a problem. And so what I did was kind of, again, talking about the story, what you're telling, like where in my story, where's the chinks in the armor? Like what, if that was stronger, how would that have changed my life? So the next steps for the Chronicles of D3 Athlete and my kind of journey is we're developing a program. It's basically going to be about a 30-day program. And what it's going to do is start having athletes think about what that plan B might be and getting ready to go in on it like you did your plan A. Because a lot of people have their plan A, but when that plan A goes away, plan B is still being treated like plan B, and it's not becoming plan A, and you aren't going after it the same way you did that other thing. So what the 30 days is going to entail is basically from the very beginning, it's starting the very basics of teaching you how to network, starting to reach out and starting to give you some clarity on what jobs are out there, because there's definitely more jobs than the 5 that I found that exist. And it basically starts taking you through the hard skills as well in terms of resume building, cover letter, interview skills, having an elevator pitch, negotiating salaries, things that are important that people never really learn and you never really talk about with other people. And at the end of it, it's basically giving you a formula that you can take and you can use and you can apply to any job that you want, anything that you want to, move into next. And that is basically the solution that I'm trying to bring to the table.
Awesome. Looking forward to see where that goes. I think that's something that you don't hear enough about, just the small things to get to that next level after the game. So props to you, man.
Appreciate it.
Hey, man, Matt. Well, before we go, so you have any links, whatever you can kind of pitch out, social media, website, anything?
Man, you guys can follow me. I do a bunch on Instagram. My handle is just Matt_Mounier. That's Mounier. I'm super interactive on there. Right now, the website is down because it's getting some work done, but it's going to be the Untold 98%. And the 30-day course is going to be called TLP, Transition Like a Pro. So those are some things to look out for. You can honestly connect with me on any social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's all Matt_Mounier. So
I'll have links to it in the episode too, if people can go check you out. Man, Matt, thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for kind of sharing your story and just what you're about, man. Hey, I'll see you in San Diego.
I like it.
Yo, thanks for listening to this episode of the 9 Point Started With a Dream podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please comment, share, leave a review. We would love to hear your thoughts. You can find more athlete-driven content at 9point.com. Till the next episode, you're only one opportunity away. Peace.